The concept of a side hustle has been around for years, decades. And our moms have always kind of juggled side hustles while still taking care of their day jobs and taking care of us at home. But how have side hustles evolved over the years, especially in 2020, where we saw a lot of women lose their jobs, hold side hustles that are able to supplement their everyday salaries during a global pandemic? Let's talk about it. Let's discuss the financial implications and the pros and cons of having side hustles. Post 2020 has shown itself to be a whole different ballgame. We were forced to get completely out of our comfort zones and to find creative ways and also innovative ways around different circumstances. One of them being finding ways to balance our personal finances. A recent poll conducted by South African e-commerce platform Gumtree has indicated that 31.5% of South Africans have either started a secondary job on the side or have transformed their side hustles into their main sources of income. If you've been sitting with an idea that perhaps you're waiting to birth or thinking of starting, perhaps you need that push to get you started on your side hustle, then stick around for this conversation as we discuss practical tools to help your side hustle succeed with financial advisor Ashley Paulis and businesswoman Inga Sebata on today's edition of the Sit Down Womenomics. Thank you so much for joining me. Welcome to the Sit Down.
Thank you for having us.
So we cannot talk about side hustles without actually discussing how it goes so far back. I don't know whether my mom was having, she's Imali Mkamed, was it called?
Yeah.
Or Imali Kaus.
Yes.
Or Dubai money.
Yeah.
Or matras money. There was something.
Money that just popped out of nowhere. Exactly. Yeah.
My mom would go to work and go sell her cooks at work.
Yeah.
You know, while she's at her secretary job.
Yeah.
So there was always some kind of side hustle in how our parents raised us as well, right? It's not something new. But how has the side hustle industry changed in recent years, actually?
So it's become a little bit more mainstream when we look at the likes of social media and what's going on. It's become a bit more at the forefront of our everyday lives, you know, things that we see that's become a bit more popular with everybody. So it's changed a bit more from the background. I mean, think of the likes of Tupperware, Herbalife, things of social media, YouTube channels, Instagram, all of those things. So now everybody knows and knows how it should be done. So it's become a lot more popular in today's life, yeah.
Why is it crucial to have a side hustle?
It all depends on what you want to achieve. I mean, but at the end of the day, majority of people step into that in terms of making sure that they can either supplement their income, which is maybe not enough, number one, or it's birthed out of passion. You know, this is my passion, because vast majority of people don't work in the fields that they're passionate about. They have a job that pays the bills. And that could become a leveraging tool from moving from what you're doing day to day to moving into your passion.
I mean, in South Africa, we saw a lot of pay decreases in 2020, a lot of salary cuts in 2020. How does then having a side hustle tie into that, and is it as easy as we make it seem?
It's not as easy as what we make it seem. There's a lot of psychology that goes behind it, a lot of planning and risk mitigation. But yes, 2020 has been a very tough year. I mean, we've seen salary cuts, we've seen retrenchment like we've never seen before, yet everything still keeps going up. You know, life still has to continue. We have to eat. Kids need to go to school. For example, kids were not going to school in 2020, but school fees had to be paid. So side hustles in that aspect, what we've just went through because of COVID-19, could have helped you fill those gaps. But in a normal circumstance, side hustles can maybe help you get forward. Paying off debt, you know, paying off that bond and things like that. So it also depends on the circumstances.
Yeah. I mean, Inga, let's talk about the psychology. You know, let's tap into that because you have a lived experience. You have two businesses that are side hustles and a main hustle, your corporate career.
Yeah.
You have Latita Hair Studio, you have Stitched by Inga, for adults and kids, and you're running all of these. What have been the pros and the cons for you having to run 2 side hustles and a corporate career?
The first time I learned that something called a burnout exists is when I was running all 3. So that was the con, the getting tired much quicker. Because naturally, I'm a very energetic person. You know, I run 10 kilometers a day, Monday to Friday. I've got 2 kids. I've got everything else that's going. And I had never experienced the burnout in my life before. And having all 3 of these happening at the same time, and I'm a wife, and I'm a mother, and I'm a friend, daughter, you know what I mean? And I found that I was getting tired a lot quicker. And that's when now I had to rethink on how to schedule my life. That was the con. That keeps on being a con. And I need to, I need to constantly manage it, right? So it doesn't get bad. And the pro for me is the financial freedom. I have to be honest. Just knowing you have money, you know, and you have money, and money gives you access to other things that you previously wouldn't have access to. So you are able to give your kids, for example, the quality of education you want and you've dreamt of for them. You know what I mean? You are able to go away when you are having the burnout, because that's why you want to make money, so that the money can work for you in the end. Investing and making sure that your safety net is nice and comfortable for events when COVID hits, and you know your salary gets cut, or just planning for whatever eventuality, and knowing that you have multiple streams on income and you're not dependent on this one. Because my biggest fear is depending on one stream of income where whether I'm employed tomorrow is dependent on someone else.
Yeah. Lesson learned, COVID, lesson learned.
That just sends shivers down my spine. And so having Stitched by Inga and having Latita Hair Studio, I know that I'm in control. Do you know what I mean? Nobody's going to fire me, do you understand? Or retrench me. It's for as long as I'm alive and as long as I have brain between my ears, they are going to work. So those are the pros and cons.
And that is that always the reality, Ashley, in that you know you have that safety net because you have a side hustle? Or what does it take to ensure that you have a safety net because you have a side hustle?
So we're delving into psychology. What Inga's actually speaking about is she's got a different psychological approach to this than a lot of other people might have. A lot of people find their safety net in their day-to-day, in their 9 to 5. And like Inga says, that's devastating. You know, God forbid something happens, which we've just seen happen, everything is gone. I mean, let's say you're earning a 30,000 Rand salary through a corporate, you've got no side hustle, you've got a bond, you've got school fees to pay, you've got a vehicle that's on finance, you've got all of these other day-to-day costs, and when 1,000 or 2,000 Rand gets cut or you get retrenched, all of those things in the back end go as well. Sure. So 100%, I mean, like she mentioned, for her it is a safety net, and it should be for a lot of other people, whether you do it through side hustles or any other venture that you're looking to pursue. Do it with intent. Do it with intent.
I mean, the fear of failure is real, right? So even in having the side hustles and your corporate career, there's still that fear of failure, and will I still be able to support myself even with the side hustles alone? What kind of mindset do you then employ to prepare yourself for any eventuality, whether the side hustles could fail or whether you could lose your job? How do you stretch your mind between that? Because a lot of people are just like, what if this falls apart? What if this falls apart?
What am I going to do?
What am I going to do? Do you think that way, or are you like this? The reason why I'm stretching myself like this is because one may give, but at least not all may give.
So I think that way for my 9 to 5, right? Which is interesting, because the fact that I have to trust my future and put my future in somebody else's hands is what scares me the most. So I know, or not that I know for a fact, but it's a possibility that one day my 9 to 5 might end. Whether it's me getting fired, it's me getting retrenched, or the company gets liquidated. There are so many reasons why my 9 to 5 can end, right? And so that's why for me, my businesses are are very important to me. And when it comes to my businesses, there's no option for failure. Yeah, that's what I just tell myself. We will make a plan, we will seek help, we will reach out to industry players who've done this longer than I have. I will find a solution.
Yeah.
That's the thought that I have, because I am ultimately in charge on whether it succeeds or fails.
And how do you ensure then that you're not taking from your salary to ensure that that doesn't fail?
So in the beginning, when they first started, I was taking from my salary to build the businesses and, you know, the startup capital, the buying of machines for making dresses, you know, the setting it up and making sure that it's running like a proper company. And when it started, you know, carrying itself and I didn't have to finance it anymore, then I had to separate the two lives. That my 9 to 5 is for me, Inga, and my two businesses are businesses. So I don't, you know, take and go buy myself a Louis Vuitton bag, for example.
Yeah.
So I'm very disciplined that way. My businesses are not, they're not here to finance my lifestyle. If I can't afford a Louis Vuitton bag, I can't afford it. You know, I'm not gonna steal from the business to make sure that I can afford an Instagram lifestyle. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because for me, the reason I'm building it, like Ashley said, it's for my safety net, not to give me a lifestyle that is glam and out there and opulent and such things.
And Ashley, I mean, a side hustle doesn't necessarily have to be a business, right? It can be you monetizing a skill set. How do we go about figuring out how can I monetize my skill set? What are some examples perhaps that you can give us?
So, I mean, if we look in the corporate space, you look at the likes of, let's use an industry like data and analytics, which has flown through the roof recently with the whole digitalization because of COVID. And you get a lot of guys that work in corporate, for example, that have got the opportunity, and it's part of their employment contract, that they can freelance and outsource their skills. But what you also see is that in corporate, they, for example, are quite underpaid. So by converting that into a consultancy on a part-time basis, you can start generating some good income, but something that you already do on a day-to-day. There's various things that one can look at in terms of opening up a side hustle or acquiring a new skill set, like you mentioned.
And Inga, you know, you're a PR practitioner by day and an entrepreneur by other times. How then did you start the communication process with your boss to say, this is also what I do, and this is kind of how I allocate my time? Because there's boundaries you need to set, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So it was, I first had to have a conversation with myself and before I approached my boss, because I don't like doing this thing of hiding and she mustn't know and hey, it's
now
difficult.
I'm using the office printer,
Ooh,
and then she comes across an stitched by Inga invoice.
Let her head you. So I first had to have a conversation with myself and weigh the pros and cons. And I always like planning for worst case scenario. And the question that I kept asking myself is, what if she says no? What if she says you can't because you are a full-time employee here? What then? Am I prepared to let my 9 to 5 go to pursue my passion? Because I know Stitch by Inga is going to be successful. By fire, by force, by hook, by crook, it's going to make it. Do you know what I mean? It might not look like it's making it now because it's not generating the money that was 3 years ago when I started it. And so I went in with that mindset that if she says no, am I willing to resign and say, I'm going to do this thing full time because I loved it that much, you know? So fortunately, you know, I was very blessed. She's a very understanding lady. She's an entrepreneur herself, which helped a lot. So she understood that, and I had to make her comfortable that my 9 to 5 and my clients in my 9 to 5 will not suffer as a result of, you know, of my side hustles. And she was very understanding and she just lets me be. Her thing was, as long as I don't get complaints from clients, go do your thing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, Ashley, how do you achieve that? How do you achieve ensuring that you're pursuing your passion, you're doing that right, while still also, you know, balancing out with keeping your day job, you know, safe, safeguarded, and you're not losing, you're not dropping the ball on either one of those things. And also not losing out financially, where you're leaking money and taking money from your salary to pump it into this passion thing that you have going on.
So I think Inga will agree with me that there's no such thing as things working out 100%.
Yeah.
There's a thing called trade-offs, and that's where we say, okay, these are the pros and the cons. These are the pros that I want, and these are the cons that I'm willing to live with. And you can make your decision based on that, because you know what you're in for. You know what you're going to gain, and you know what you're going to trade off by making those decisions. But a lot of things that she's mentioned is a lot of things that Inga's done right from a financial planning perspective in the background, is that if you do finance your business, make sure you've got an accountant or you've got the knowledge to say, well, look, I'm giving this money to this entity. This entity owes me this money back. There's two entities leveraging off of one another. But one then has to have that mitigation tool in place, is to say that I don't want to be leaking money out of my personal pocket to hopefully sustain this business. You know, so one has to get that right as well. But like Inga also mentioned, I mean, it's also about making sure that these are the pros. I'm going to have some sort of financial freedom eventually, but the cons are I have to trade off a bit of time.
Yes.
Maybe I'm sitting now, I get home at 5:30, spend some time with the kids, cook, spend time with hubby or wife, and then I go back down to the books, and I'm sitting in front of the laptop working till 10, 11 at night. The reality of the matter is that you're making trade-offs, but like Inga mentioned, something so powerful, there's a big driving force behind why she does what she does. It's the education for the kids. It's the lifestyle that she envisioned. It's coming from maybe a background, because fear, like you mentioned earlier, sometimes drives people, and in other times it paralyzes people. So you've got to be able to also differentiate between the two, and in Inga's situation, it's driven her to making this a success.
Absolutely. And Inga, in starting your side hustle, I'm sure you envisioned your family and friends would be so supportive and would like be the first there to buy out everything and to be the first in line to stand at the salon door. And it's never quite exactly how you envision it to be, right? And it does give you an element of discouragement. And I think a lot of people that I speak to that want to start up side hustles or want to have side hustles are always discouraged by that. How can they relook at their idea of what success is within their circles of starting a side hustle and thriving within your side hustle in your inner circle?
So one thing I learned very early on in my life, and it's a lesson my mother taught me, is to have low expectations of people. And when you are done having low expectations, you need to lower them some more.
Oh my gosh. She's an optimist.
Because it sets you up for failure. You know, expecting people to be who you are, expecting people to support you the way you would support them. You know, it just creates unnecessary tension. Do you know what I mean? So my friends are amazing, by the way, but generally I have a very pragmatic view of people in general. So whether I succeed or not is not dependent on Olwetu and the fact that she's my friend. Whether I succeed or not is not dependent on my husband and the fact that he's my husband or not. Do you know what I mean? What can I do to leverage the relationships that I have, but also not have high expectations of them? I mean, people have their own problems, you know, they have their own financial commitments, they have their own things that they don't want to talk about and that need their money. So I can't expect my friends to buy all my 100 dresses every month in order for me to make salaries and, you know, operations of running the... I can't expect that. So what do I have within me that I can use? I've got digital skills. I've got, you know, I've got a website. I've got this, I've got that. And I can use that. Whether my friends are on board or not is up to them. It's not an expectation from me. Obviously, if they are there, absolutely, you know, we're celebrating it. But I don't expect, I won't now side eye you like, you haven't bought a dress this month.
And then you're here at this event.
Do you know what I mean? Like, no, it's fine. Whether you are, I'm just like any other shop. You know, you can choose from Stitch by Inga or this or that or that. You've got options, and I am one of your options. And if what I have is not within your taste and style, it's okay, you know. But my friends have been as supportive, I have to say, because they will be seeing this. And they'll be like, Aibo.
Like, Aibo, we've been there. Like, excuse me,
what are you talking about?
You.
And actually, I mean, when we think of side hustles, we think of the idea. We really take a step back and think about the required planning this needs. Do I have to register a company? How do I deposit the money? Where must people pay to? How do I, start it up? Do I need startup capital? Do I have to take from my salary to start it up? Can I start without startup capital or having to take from my salary? Where do I even start compartmentalizing all this thinking and start planning?
So that's the thing, is you're going to be overwhelmed with whatever it is that you want to do. And you then need to step back. Number one, you need to get out of this whole optimistic bias, because that makes you think that you're looking at the outcome already, but you're not looking at the first 5 years that you have to sweat through the business. And there's various things that need to be taken into account before one gets to that stage of, well, do I register a business, or do I say to my clients, hey, well, deposit it into my personal banking account? But some of the practicalities are, well, if I come to you and I pitch you a business idea and I want you to, in essence, invest in my business, it's going to be more credible when I'm putting it in your face. Here's a PTY Limited. So all of these things make you more credible about when people say, well, he or she is taking this seriously. Back to the capital one, it depends entirely on what it is that you want to do. If your business specifically requires capital, then yes, you'd have to. My guidance or advice would be is to seek a mentor, seek somebody who's a specialist in this field who can guide you and lead you to that place to help you eliminate some of those little hurdles and obstacles that you might face, making this painstakingly difficult process a little easier, at the end of the day, and just guiding you and helping you.
Yeah. I mean, Inga, your business is fully fledged right now, and you probably have business accounts for every single one of each one. But what do you advise when you're starting off? Should I keep the account separate? Do I deposit it to my account? And I'm just doing some of your research. You just deposit their money into my account. I'll send you an invoice. I'm a CC.
Let me touch on one thing that Inga mentioned, right, is that she's got the diligence of separating the two. She's not eating off of the business and vice versa. So in the beginning phases, you're also trying to gauge, is this business going to pick up or not? So it would be tedious going through the whole process of CIPC registration and so on and so forth. But with that comes the added responsibility and accountability to self, is to say that when 20,000 Rand's coming in, that's not my 20,000 Rand. That's the business's 20,000 Rand. And when you're still in that process of establishing your business and identifying your target market and making sure that this thing is going to work, make sure you have the diligence to not eat that money.
Yeah.
Maybe put it away in a little savings pocket, which the banks offer. There's various ways that one can approach it, but money's more about psychology than it is anything else.
Yeah, definitely.
True. And there's also this the new mentality or the new mindset of having side hustles to supplement how I save. So my salary is for my lifestyle and my life and everyday bills, and my side hustles for savings and investments. Would you advise that, Ashley?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one can even get to the process of using just your salary and living off of your salary, and maybe saying, okay, if I earn 20, I'm living off of 70% or 80%, and the remainder is my disposable, of which I then invest, save, and grow this empire that I want to grow for myself. If you then add a side hustle on top of that, you're just increasing the odds. The fact of the matter is that it all requires work. And the harder you can work at it in the beginning, the quicker we're going to get to where you want to be. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. And Inga, how have you employed that, like splitting how the money gets funneled and channeled with regards to all these, like this empire you're building?
So from the beginning, I was very clear to Ashley's point that my side hustle, which is what it was at the time, I'm not building it to finance my lifestyle. I'm building it to grow my investment portfolio. I'm building it to have more savings. I'm building it, for my kids to make sure that they have the quality of education and the quality of life that I wanted for them. So from day one, CIPC registration happened, opening of business bank accounts happened. So when I send out an invoice, at the bottom of the invoice, it's my business bank accounts, to make sure that the two lives are completely separate. Because sometimes the reality is that the money you earn from your 9 to 5 is probably not enough for you to invest and save and grow portfolios and do this and do that. And so to Ashley's point, the side hustle or your side business helps you get there that much quicker and make it much bigger and, you know, wider than what you want it to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Ashley, what would you advise when it comes to investment options that you can channel the money that you make from your side hustle?
Number one is emergency funding. I think Inga will elaborate on this a bit more, but if we look at businesses around the world, 80% of them fail within the first 5 years. Not because of a bad business idea, not because of bad management, but because of cash flow. Money's going out so that we can try and make money, but the money's not coming back fast enough. But you may be responsible for 5, 6, 10, or 1,000 employees. How are you going to mitigate that risk? So emergency funding, number one. So you need to be able to sustain yourself for at least, in my opinion, about 6 months. If the worst of the worst happens, you can still carry on. From there, you start growing your portfolio in your various entities. Saying, for example, let's say Stitched by Inga. Maybe she wants to grow this business to such an extent that she's buying out other companies that are failing. And there comes my name, boom. And so you're also acquiring market share as well as you keep growing. But one can't plan too big unless we've started with the basics, emergency funding and so forth. So it also depends on what you want to do. But number one, emergency funding, that slush fund is the most important thing.
Absolutely.
Personally and in
Completely
your
agree.
business.
Thank you so much. Stitched by Inga, where else can we find Stitched by Inga besides Art of Superwoman?
Of course, that had to be thrown in there. I am on Instagram, Stitched by Inga. I have an online store, stitchedbyinga.co. Can I give out my number?
Yeah,
They can
yes,
also WhatsApp
yes.
me on 074-886-8711. Yeah, those are the platforms.
Amazing. And Latita Salon?
Latita Hair Studio is all the way in Free State, but definitely coming to Joburg sometime next
We've
year.
got some good Free State audience.
Yes, we
So,
do.
yes.
We do.
So
And
if you're
we've
in Free State,
received.
go to Latita Hair Studio.
Please. And we've received, you know, amazing, it's only been a month and we've received some amazing support from our Free State ladies. So it's on Instagram as well, Latita Hair Studio. I don't know the business number off by heart, but they can WhatsApp me on 074-886-8711. So, yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Beautiful businesses.
Thank you so much.
And Ashley, where can we find you to get more advice? Because we need it.
Touch base on Twitter @Paulis Ashley, the surname and then first name, or on my website www.ashleypaulis.co.za.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for joining us for this edition of the Sit Down Women.